this is Kevin Tong, available for children's birthday parties, and you're listening to Master of One Podcast.
Welcome to this Sandbox episode of the Master of One Podcast, part 2 for this week. This week we talked to poster artist and illustrator Matt Taylor. I'm Andrew, your Master of Art and Design.
I'm Patrick, your Master of Television and Film.
And I'm Luke, your Master of Toys and Games.
So grab your passport and get ready to talk some art, because it's time for another episode.
Don't forget your trainers.
So for this Sandbox episode, we're excited to talk to somebody who we've had on the show before. He is a good friend of the show, but last time we talked to him in a trio, so we're excited to talk to him one-on-one right now. We are talking to none other than illustrator and international poster artist, Matt Taylor. Welcome to the show.
All right, Matt.
Thank
Hey,
you,
Patrick.
evening, guys.
Hello.
When I said international poster artist, Patrick gave me a weird look like, wait, his work is international? Yeah, his work is all over the place.
I was trying to figure out the math of one-on-one when there's clearly 4 people on this call.
Well,
Listen,
Master of One is one
pretend-
entity, and
Yeah,
then
it's-
Matt Taylor is another entity.
Thank
Isn't
you,
that
Luke.
okay?
That's
I got
how
it.
it works. Thank
That
you.
works.
So, all right. So, Matt, like we said, you've been on the show before, but it was under the guise of a different setup. There was 3 of you. We had you, Tom Whalen, and Kevin Tong on the show to talk about the Inforama show. But now it's just us
Yeah.
and you. Okay. So, give all the
Okay.
people a little Wikipedia page about who you are and what makes you you.
Well, unfortunately, Wikipedia haven't approved my Wikipedia page, so I'll just have to do this from memory instead of reading it from the one that I definitely haven't written for myself and haven't tried to post a few times. I don't have enough time to do that. My name is Matt Taylor. I'm an illustrator. I live in the UK. I draw pictures for money. I will draw pretty much anything that people want me to. I'm lucky enough to spend a lot of my time at the moment doing stuff with Mondo, which, I guess a lot of your listeners are probably most familiar with my work through. But I've done work all over the place, book covers, album covers, magazine work, movie posters, but a bit of everything, really.
That's pretty concise. That's more like the Reader's Digest version of your biography. But we've had the opportunity, Patrick, I think you have articulated it pretty well. Talk to everybody about how we have a special connection with Matt.
Well, yeah, we are the official U.S. ambassadors to Matt Taylor. Like, we were assigned an artist, and it was Matt. So Matt's been over here for... You were here for the Inforama show. You were here for MondoCon. And we were lucky enough to get to see you both times. I think one of those we got to check out your sweet tattoo. And if I remember right, it's just an eagle carrying an American flag in its talons, something like that. It's close to that.
It's an anchor, but yeah, close.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I knew it was similar.
You say tomato, we say eagle with talons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next one. And you're going to be at MondoCon this year. And I'm not sure if we said this on the show. We may have said it once, but we're also going to be there. And so we're going to get a chance to, we're going for 3 for 3. So moving forward, any event you're going to be out in the States, you obviously have to let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Totally.
I'm going to be doing a show in 2018, so you guys are welcome to come to that as well.
Yeah, we'll go and throw on the calendar now for sure.
Yeah.
But you've done so much work. I mean, last time we talked, I think I said this to you in an email, but it seems like the properties you're getting to work with, frankly, the rate the work is coming out, and just, in my opinion, just the stuff that catches my eye, it seems like you've exploded, especially over the last 6 months. I mean, I swear every other day there's a new Matt Taylor drop, and it's just awesome. So if you don't mind, maybe share some of those properties you've gotten to work on recently and what that has been like on your end. Do you see that there's been a big shift in maybe the amount of work that you're doing or the level of some of the properties you're working with?
Yeah, Kind of. I mean, this year's been a funny one because I felt like I was doing an awful lot of work for a long time and no one was really seeing it. Because I spent the first bit of this year working on Lion King and Aladdin, which were for the Disney show, which kind of got bumped back a bit from when it was originally meant to happen. I mean, because it was a big, complicated show. I think I originally had the artwork for that in January. Oh, no, it was supposed to be in January, but I blew the deadlines completely. I think I ended up getting the final work in February or March. But it kind of went later and later and later. And so that work was just kind of sitting in the bank for a long time. And I was sort of feeling like I haven't put anything out, like nothing's been coming out. But then those two came out. And then we had we can talk about like all the different posters in a bit, but like Guardians and Attack on Titan and Baby Driver all kind of came out at the same time, like all on top of each other. Actually, I think this year's probably been one of the slower years in terms of like the number of posters I've done for Mondo, especially like 2016. I did way more. I'm just looking now on my folders, and I've done like Aladdin, Attack on Titan, Baby Driver, Guardians, a thing I can't talk about, Shade, and The Lion King. And then last year was ridiculous because I think Back to the Future was the tail end of the year before. But 2016, I'm just having a quick look now so I can see what I did. But there was a lot. There was like the whole Inforama show, which was 4 posters, Star Trek Beyond, the Infinite Warfare thing I did, which was through Mondo, even though it wasn't a print release. Everybody Wants Some, Escape from New York, Edge of Tomorrow, which came out this year. I did that the tail end of 2015 and into 16.
Really?
Some bits and pieces. So yeah, like this year has strangely been sort of, in terms of Mondo, like lower in terms of the number of posters I've been doing, but I feel like they've probably been received better, and as such they've been getting, they've all come out like on top of each other, and because they've all been pretty well received, there's maybe been a kind of level of hype about them that last year I was doing things that kind of came out and people went, yeah, that's cool, and that was it. Whereas, you know, the social media deluge over Guardians, especially because James Gunn retweeted it, and then my social media feed became unusable for 2 days because just hundreds and hundreds of retweets. And then same with Baby Driver. Edgar Wright retweeted it, and then again it was just like, guess I'm not using Twitter for the next 3 or 4 days because I'm not reading through 500 mentions.
Yeah. So there was some other controversy around your Guardians release, though. I got swept up in that, and that's that Mondo accidentally released the print. So they released it early. And actually, online. I actually purchased one of those when it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually purchased one of those, and then what they did is within a couple hours they had to turn around and email everybody and say, no, that wasn't the actual release. We're refunding all the purchases. It'll go back into the normal schedule. And then the next time it came out, I missed it. So I successfully bought and then also lost your Guardians print. So hopefully.
Okay, I'll hang on to one for you at MondoCon.
There was one in I still have like the screenshot of where I purchased it because I kind of figured because of the quiet release that someone's going to happen. But it's okay. So I don't know if like you knew about the botched release on that side, but.
No, I only picked up on it after it happened because I was trying to time like my Instagram posts once the posters had been revealed, and obviously the variant which was at San Diego had been revealed online, and then there was the kind of accidental drop, which is basically, as far as I gather, is just a technology hiccup. Right. Because they were going on sale, as far as I know, they were going on sale online at the same time as they were going on sale at the booth at SDCC. And I knew that my Guardians was going to be released on, I think, the Saturday afternoon. So when on Friday people were saying, oh, we bought it early. I was like, oh, that's unusual. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Cool.
So I emailed Mondo and said, is it out there? Can I put the post up with the artwork and share it about? And they said, no, it's an error, basically. And it sucks because...
The good news with the Mondo guys, as always, they're pros and they made it right. I mean, everybody they did a cool thing on the back end that we don't necessarily go all into, but they did a cool thing on the back end to make that right. So that's all good. And
I heard about that.
Awesome that everybody is so hyped about your work that that people would be upset that they don't get it, right? That's a good thing for you as an artist.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, I mean, like, I buy art too. I get gutted when I miss drops, or I forget that something's going on sale, or I think it's in my cart and I'm about to buy it and then I don't. It's frustrating as heck. But it's all part of the whole thing of you can't have everything.
I get it, man. So let's jump into a couple of pieces, and then I think at some point we'll circle around to maybe some more life stuff with Matt Taylor, and some. I know Patrick has his eye on a couple of interests that he's interested about, but let's talk about some of these works that you've already mentioned. Several of them are in my house right now, and I want to know a little bit of the backstory behind it. So let's talk about the Disney show briefly. You did the Aladdin piece, and you did the Lion King piece. They're very different kinds of pieces, but they're both incredibly stunning. So let's talk specifically right now about the Lion King piece, because holy cow, the colors in that piece they're breathtaking. It's one of the show pieces in our house now because the colors are just your eyes are just drawn to it. Talk to us through the process and the composition of that piece, choosing the colors, the look on your face when you finally saw one in person. Hopefully you have. Walk us through that process.
Okay, well, start with the colors. Have you seen my Jurassic? You saw my Jurassic Park poster that I did for Inforama last year. Yeah, same color palette. It's the exact same color palette. It's just the black swapped out to white. Because I was kind of struggling with the color palette. Originally, I went through because it's based around the "Can't Wait to Be King" musical number,
right?
And I went through that because the color palette in that, the moment that Simba starts singing, the colors go and the backgrounds go like bonkers. It's sort of super stylized. It's when you look at it, your eyes reading it as really bright because it's so kind of jarring against the palette of the film to begin with, because it's dusty desert hues, and then suddenly it's an explosion of like reds and greens and blues. And so I use an application from Adobe called it used to be called Cooler, it's just called Color now, where you can extract a palette from an image. So I took some screen grabs of the scene and then ran them through this, and it kind of pulled out the palettes, and I put them on the artwork, or I started sketching with those colors, and I realized that actually they were quite drab. And it was kind of the juxtaposition of those compared to how the film looked before they come on screen that makes you think like, wow, this is so colorful and bright. But when you actually try and separate out the individual colors, they look not quite as stunning and as exciting as I thought they did. So I remembered that my Jurassic Park poster, people loved the colors on it, like those really kind of almost fluorescent neons. So I went back to that and just tried to match as close as I could some of the colors from that against the colors that I pulled out of this palette. So I tried to find like a blue that was sort of similar, and a green and a pink, and then I added in a couple more colors as well. So really that one was sort of, I tried to do something, it didn't work. So then I was lazy and I went back and used a color palette that I'd already created. But in terms of the composition, I just loved the last scene of that Can't Wait to Be King, where Simba's on top of the pyramid of animals. And it just seemed like such an obvious, visual explosion of color and creatures and wildlife. And it's got to be fun. I feel like Disney posters have to be fun. Otherwise, kind of what's the point?
Sure.
And my daughter loves The Lion King, so I wanted to do something I don't have any work of my own hanging in the house because that's weird. But the only exception I'll make is that I am going to have a Lion King poster up because my daughter loves it and it's going in a new bedroom. So to be honest, that whole project was an excuse for me to make a piece of art for my daughter's bedroom, and Mondo kind of financed that and sort of facilitated that happening. And luckily everyone else liked it too. But I was showing her, she's 2.5, she's coming, she's almost 3 now, but she was sort of 2.5 when I was doing the artwork. And I was just sort of constantly getting her into the studio and going, do you like this? Does this look good? Do you want more? And I forget there was something I didn't put on there. And she kind of noticed, so I put it on there. It was the girl lion.
Nala.
Nala. Yeah. She was a kind of late addition, which is why she's not more prominently featured on the poster, because I sort of put her in kind of at the last minute. But, it was because the girl lion wasn't on there. So, yeah.
Cool. So, I have two, I think, follow-ups from that. In one, and I was saying something to Andrew and Luke about this, that if I go back and look at your stuff maybe from last year, moving into this year, to me it seems like you've always been colorful, but it does seem like it is getting more fluorescent overall, because I see that in the Lion King piece, I see that in the Guardians piece, I see it in the hues of Baby Driver as far as almost being like oversaturated, and even some hints in some new pieces. So I'm curious if that is the case. But I think even aside from that, I'm curious what drives you to use so much bright color. I mean, do you just internally feel rainbows and butterflies all the time and you just want to put it on paper? Or is it one of these, like, I wish my life had more color, and so I'm going to put that on a print if I work on one?
Maybe. I mean, I think part of it is that you guys, or kind of poster collectors in general, maybe have a kind of disproportionate view of my work because you'll only really see the poster work. I mean, I do a lot of book covers, and they're fairly muted. I've done a lot of stuff for John le Carré, which is all very kind of greys and blues. And I've finished a project recently, which is fairly substantial, which again is in kind of muted tones. I think a lot of the posters that you talk about, I've steered hard into the bright colors because I feel like they fit the property. With Guardians especially, I didn't feel like I could do anything but have it be ridiculously bright and ridiculously over the top because of the film.
Right.
And I was slightly beaten to the punch by the theatrical poster for Guardians 2, which is amazing because it's got all the colours on it. And when that came out, it's like, oh, I'm doing this now. And in fact, I'm doing another poster at the moment, which... no, done it again. God, I can't talk about it without... I mean, you can leave this bit in where I'm telling you that I can't talk about projects because
it's good.
Otherwise I'll give the game away. But there's nothing worse than when a theatrical one sheet comes out and it really on the idea that you're doing, because it does what you're doing but slightly better, and then you have to go back to the start and do it again. But yeah, so Guardians is very much a case of I felt I needed to do something so bright and so over the top just to totally match the film. Lion King, again, was sort of super bright, and for the reasons I said earlier, I wanted to kind of match the tone of that moment in the film. I mean, something like Aladdin, I think, is actually fairly subdued. It's fairly kind of in keeping with the palette of the film because it's the kind of blues and golds. Yeah. And Baby Driver, I mean, I was just going off Rory's palette because he'd done such a kick-ass poster, and it was those kind of hot pinks and purples. You know, I mean, obviously the variant was slightly different because I just went in a kind of slightly bonkers direction, but like the palette that I did for the regular version was basically just keeping the same colours as I think it was like the teaser one sheet.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder this: how much of the properties that are being handed to you right now are being, pardon the pun, tailored to you and curated because they know you do a really good job with using lots of bright colors in non abrasive ways and non-offensive ways. Like, you can use a lot of bright colors and it look ugly, but you've managed to use a composition with these colors that doesn't, that they all complement each other, and it works on the overarching picture. And with, like, you know, with James Gunn, he's gone on record as saying Guardians of the Galaxy is not a superhero movie, it's a space opera, and he wanted to bring color back to space. Totally. And so I think you being the artist to help bring that to life is I mean, you've got to imagine that the people at Mondo, or the people in general who are bringing you these projects, know, okay, this poster needs to be bright and fun. Matt is great at accomplishing that. Let's hand him this property. Like, there's a hand-in-hand piece.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I trust Mitch and Rob and Eric, all the guys at Mondo, to give me projects that I'm well suited for. I don't think I've ever had to turn down a job from them because I felt that I wasn't the right artist for it. And I have turned down lots of jobs because I don't feel like I'm the right artist for it. You know, they've got a good handle on what works well for me and what I'm best suited for. So, like, very rarely will they offer me a project and I'll be kind of sitting around thinking, I don't really know how I'm going to do this. They're great art directors and they know what they're doing. I think that's true of like all the artists that they have, that they've got such a huge roster of people available to them that they can look at a film and think who's absolutely going to kill it on this. Like one of my favorite posters from, I think it was this year, was Mark Aspinall's Planet of the Apes, which is just amazing. It's such a gorgeous piece of work. And it's kind of that mid-century, like 50s style. Oh God, I'm totally spacing on the name of the artist who used to paint like that. Like Mark is just absolutely the perfect fit for Planet of the Apes. Like there's no other way around it. It's one of the best posters that I've seen in years through Mondo. And it's one I don't have and I sort of feel like I should have as well. And so like they got that job and they think, let's get Mark to do it. They get Guardians of the Galaxy and they thought I would be good for it. That's part of what's brilliant about what they do. They assign the right movies to the right artists.
Yeah. I'm going to take us in a little bit of shift. So you're crazy busy and you have been for the last year. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
How do you balance projects? And I imagine you have overlap between different stuff. So what is it about your process, or what is it that you do to kind of put yourself back in the balance to make sure you're not putting thought into one and then switching it to a different project, or not using the same ideas for multiple projects? How does that work for you?
I think like the easiest answer is because it's my job.
Sure.
Like, I know it sounds like a really kind of blasé way to describe it, but like I've been doing this for 15 years now, and this is the nature of my job, that I will have different things on the go. And I need to be able to switch from one to another. I did a stint at a design studio about 5-6 years ago. And while I was there, I was working on maybe 3 or 4 jobs, like all the time. And, you can't let them overlap. You can't start accidentally drawing something for something else, something for a totally different project.
Sure.
You focus on the thing you're doing and then you put it aside and you start on the next thing. I mean, as far as process goes, I have a fairly rigid process, which is I would do a sketch, I'll send the sketch off to the client for feedback. That feedback can come in the same day or it can take 2 weeks. Whilst I'm waiting for that feedback, I will start on, say, the next project, the next round of sketches. So it's like, okay, I finished this section of the project, I'm going to start on the next thing. Or I might have had feedback come in from a previous sketch, and so then I start on final art for something until such time as deadlines dictate that I start doing something else, or feedback comes in. I have a jobs board in my office, which like 2 weeks ago had 15 different concurrent projects running on it, which are all at various different stages of completion, all kind of due over the next kind of 6 to 8 weeks. And I just have to be very, very careful to make sure I write exactly when things are due, exactly when sketch is due, when finals are due, like print deadlines, because if you miss a print deadline, you're up the creek, because like that's, especially for things like screen prints, with stuff like Guardians, that had to be in for approval. Like first of all, Rob and Eric and Mitch had to sign it off that they were happy with it. Then it had to go off to Marvel for their notes, which then came back and we had to make more changes. Then it had to go back in for their notes again. Then it had to get, I assume, likeness approvals from all of the people in it.
Right.
And this all had to be thought of like, okay, this has all got to be done in time to then get it to D&L, who can print it in time for San Diego, which, you can't move San Diego.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you can't push it.
How did that change? So you said you've been doing it for 15 years. So now it's pretty easy for you to segment 15 different jobs at one time. How did you get to that point?
Yeah.
Like, what are some things that you have in place as far as self-management to make sure you can do that and segment your brain space into different projects?
I think I have a pretty good understanding now of my own abilities in terms of how much I can do in a given time.
Yeah.
Like I can look at a job when it comes in and say, okay, well, this is going to take me half a day to sketch and probably 5 days on finished art, or this is going to take like 3 days of sketches and approvals, and then it's going to take a week solid of drawing. And once I know that, I can then look at my diary and say, okay, well, the deadline is here, and between like now and then I've got 15 days. I know it's going to take me 3 days to draw, so I'm going to schedule in to draw it on these 3 days, at which point I'll hit up the client again and say, okay, I'm going to get you sketches by this date. You have to get me feedback by another arbitrary date, and then I will get it done in time. And if you miss that feedback, then your work is going to be late because I'm going to be on to the next thing. And I have to be fairly like mercenary about it.
Sure.
I mean, I'm lucky to have, like, with Mondo, quite often with posters they'll be a bit more flexible. So for Guardians, I had a long time to do that. And I think originally we maybe talked about it being released alongside Guardians 2, but then that didn't work out. So then it was kind of bumped over to Mondo, to San Diego. And with The Lion King and Aladdin, we kind of knew that the show was going to be, what was it, March or April? And so the work was all due in February. And I think they briefed us back in like October or November. So it was a long time. And like, look, The Lion King took me probably about 2 weeks of actual solid drawing. So I knew I had enough time to sort of fit it in between other projects. Right. But with stuff that's more rigid, I've just finished a movie poster for a kind of action film that's out in a couple of weeks, and they need it to be available when the film comes out. And again, can't move the release deadline. So when they briefed me, I sort of looked at the schedule and it was like, okay, I've got like 4 days free, so can I get this, like the artwork creation of this poster, into those 4 days? So it's basically time management.
Yeah, which can elude most of us. When they were releasing, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when they made the decision to release the Guardians piece at SDCC, did you know at the time, or did they know at the time, or did they put 2 and 2 together that you were releasing Guardians 1 and that Ken Taylor was releasing Guardians 2, and that they were just having this Guardians Taylor release at the same time?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I first saw Ken's poster the day it was posted on Instagram or Twitter or wherever it popped up. And it was cool because, 2 Guardians posters, and they're totally different, and they're both totally cool, and they're probably they might appeal to some of the same people and some different people. So at no point was I looking at it and thinking, oh, well, that's taken the wind out of my sails. Although it was slightly disappointing to have the second best Guardians poster at San Diego. But Ken's a boss, so you can't really argue with that.
So there's something else that, in addition to art, there's something else that seems to be very prevalent on your social feeds. And that is something that all of us are familiar with, and that's shoes. Everywhere.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a bit? I mean, I know I mentioned this beforehand, and you said that you made a comment about that being a really long conversation, but can you talk to me a bit about your interest or your role in the world of shoes?
Okay, well, I think probably the better way to say it is that if you start talking to me about trainers and you're interested in them as well, and we both sort of want to talk about it, that's a conversation that's going to go on for a while. But just to sum it up briefly, I absolutely love sneakers. When I was like 10, my mum worked in a sports shop and she got discount. And so my brother and I got Air Jordans, which at 12 is the coolest thing in the world. Yeah. And then that was it, basically. Then I was hooked. And then since then, I've loved sneakers. I worked there's a shop in the UK called Size, which was one of the first stores to kind of exclusively sell just trainers, not for sport, but for fashion. Mm-hmm. And they, especially in the early days, they used to get a lot of import stuff that was impossible to get hold of. Mm-hmm. I worked there for a couple of years, and that just like fully entrenched my terrifying sneaker habit, because being around other people who are all into sneakers as well. And this was kind of early days of eBay, where you could still get like amazing bargains, and people clearing out outlet malls in America and then just putting stuff up. Like, it's impossible to get anything like as a bargain on eBay nowadays. Like, sure. It's not going to happen. And in fact, sneaker buying's, I would say, worse than buying screen prints in terms of like availability and the aftermarket just going through the roof. Because I think with art, it will tend to, unless it's like a super, super hype release, it will be expensive on day of release on the aftermarket, and then it will kind of plateau and it will find its level. Whereas with sneakers, because if you have them and you keep them for a little bit, the tendency is to wear them, and then you can't sell them for as much. So the amount of like box fresh pairs is going to get less and less over time.
Sure.
Like I could pick up a dead stock copy of say Ollie's Star Wars prints. Like they're still out there. They'll cost a lot. Actually, that's a pretty bad example because the price of those keep going up. But like I could pick a Mondo release from say 2 or 3 years ago, and there's guaranteed to be people out there who've maybe got them on their walls or they've got them in flat files, but they're still going to be in great condition. If I want to buy a pair of sneakers from 5 or 6 years ago, I've just got to pray that someone's kept a pair box fresh, because it's just the numbers is going to get smaller and smaller. So yeah, collecting trainers is a bad habit to get into.
It the other is thing a world that
you buy.
Say it again.
I was going to say it's just an awful habit to get into, because you buy them. You'll see something, you think, I'll buy this, and like if I don't like it, but you see it's available, and you think, oh yeah, I'll grab a pair of those, because even if I don't want them, I can just flip them for a bit of profit, and everyone's a winner. And then you have them in your house for a bit, and you sort of think, oh, those are nice. I think I'll wear them to the shops. Yeah. It's dry out. Like I'm not going to get any dirt on them. Oh, that's fine. And then you do that, and you're like, oh, these are so comfortable. I'll keep these. I'll buy another pair, and then I'll sell those for twice as much, and then that will pay for the pair that I'm wearing now. It's just. Can
I tell you, just from an intervention standpoint, you sound like an addict. just hearing you talk about this.
Well, so what are your shoes? Like, are you a Jordans guy, or
what
are you
a wearing right now?
Like, what's the thing you collect?
Right now, I'm not wearing anything.
No, but like, are you collecting Dunks
or
Jordans or what?
I was very, very big into Dunks for kind of the early 2000s when the Nike SB range first started popping up. They were my absolute jam. Like the early releases of those. That was when I was working in the shoe shop, and basically between the sort of 4 or 5 of us who worked there, we all basically bought all of them. And it was dreadful because we'd come into work the same day, and we'd all be wearing the same sneakers, of which there may be like 200 pairs in the world, and 3 of them were in our shop in Brighton, because we'd all gone. It's like, okay, who lives closest? Who's got to go home and change their shoes today? But yeah, like the early Supreme Nike collaborations were amazing. Yeah. I had those, and like I very rarely bought stuff and then like kept it box fresh. I'll just wear it to death. A lot of the Nike SB stuff I used to wear to skate in, which sort of gave me a perverse pleasure if it was an expensive pair of shoes or something that you knew would sell on eBay for a lot of money, and you could think, yeah, I'm going to go and skate this.
Like the Tiffany Dunks, or like the Herman, the Pee Wee Herman.
Oh yeah, the Tiffany. Jesus, the Tiffany Dunks were awful because they were made out of like plastic leather, and they shredded almost immediately. They were not cool. The ones before that, the Cali Dunks, the white ones with the little red star on them. I had those up until about 2 years ago, and unfortunately we had some damp in our flat, and they got mold on them, and I was so sad. It made me so upset because they were like my last link to that period of my life where I had sort of like 60. Yeah, well, I had like 60 pairs of sneakers in my house. Like this is before I met my wife.
Sure.
Like I'm just amazed by where this conversation has turned. I feel like I've seen you in a whole new light. Now every time I see you, when we see you at MondoCon, I want to see you in a different pair of shoes every time I see you, even if I see you within a 15-minute span of each other. I want to see a different pair of shoes.
The worst thing is, I already know what shoes I'm wearing to MondoCon.
That's not bad. That's fine.
I planned my whole outfit around it.
I kind of do. Like I know exactly. I've got far too many shoes.
Well, that's a sneakerhead too, man.
It is. I don't buy that many sneakers anymore. I've got about 4 or 5 pairs, but I do buy a lot of Japanese moccasins. There's a Japanese brand called Visvim, which is basically my crack. Like all the money I make from drawing goes on that, and they make the most insanely comfortable kind of hand-stitched moccasins, and I will wear those all day, every day.
I think I'm also so surprised by Luke. We've never had this conversation. I assume Luke went to Rack Room Shoes whenever they had their BOGO and just bought 2 pairs for $39. And the fact that he's like, I'm blown away by this whole conversation.
We're learning new things about Matt Taylor and Luke at this point. Yeah.
Andrew, me and Andrew are just staring at each other, just like, It's fun to see. This is crazy. Okay.
Yeah, it's just going straight over.
I have no idea about any of this. I thought that the Martian shoe Nike things, whatever, that are on your Instagram look sweet. I know nothing about them. eBayed them real quick. I can't afford them. Look great. Probably not in my size.
Yeah.
So I could buy 2 and stitch them together. But if you come across any size 15, let me know. And maybe I could buy a pair off of you. But
yeah, you might be out of luck with that one. The best thing with those is I got them for retail. Like I actually got them just, from a shop. In fact, no, I did those ones I didn't pay for. I won them in a raffle.
Jeez.
Man, it's good to be Matt Taylor. That's what I'm picking up.
Patrick has to have his shoes hand sewn from like a specialty shop in Switzerland.
Yeah, I buy a potato sack and I wrap them around my foot, and then and that's it. Well, cool. We're gonna jump into final questions. We're gonna each go around and ask one more. I'll go and kick it off, but I have a kind of serious question. So sorry to divert the shoe talk, but we had an artist on last week on the podcast, Mark Fujita, and for those that didn't listen, he's a staff writer at Cartoon Network, and initially he had been pushing towards being an animator, and at some point he just realized he had this realization that he needed to stop pursuing being the artist, and he needed to kind of live into the thing he was good at, which was writing in this case. And that was a big moment for him when he was able to make that shift. And I'm curious with you, was there ever a moment where you had to say, hey, I really, really like this thing, but I need to steer away from it, either because I have to provide for a family or because I'm actually a lot better at this other thing over here? Or I'm curious if you have a moment like that in your career you could identify.
I don't know. I think I've been pretty lucky insofar as I found a thing that I was good at, and people seem to agree that I was good at that, which might sound a bit flippant, but I think the big moments that I've had in my career have been sort of spurred on by someone saying something. Or I worked in a tech startup for a few years doing basically artworking, sort of designing UX layouts for apps. And I was illustrating kind of on the side, but that was my day job. That was paying the bills. And my boss there, was a great dude, totally supported me. He knew I was illustrating as well, and he was developing an app that had kind of little cartoon characters in it, and I was drawing them all. And we got another artist in, and who's actually ended up being like a good buddy of mine. And we were just kind of talking in a coffee shop about this other dude, and he sort of said that what he liked about my work was that I was kind of reliable, or that I was like a journeyman illustrator. And that kind of stung a bit, because I was like, I don't want to be a journeyman illustrator. I think I'm better than that. And so that sort of gave me that little kick to actually, I was made redundant from that job because the company folded. But I think if it hadn't, I probably would have left anyway, because I just thought I don't want to be a journeyman. I think I deserve giving myself the chance to try and be better than that, or to try and push past that a bit. And it's such as an arbitrary little comment that I doubt he'd even remember he said, but it's like when that thing gets in your brain and you think, no, I'm not having that.
Yeah.
I'd need to do better. Yeah. And I think maybe it was that actually. It was that I needed to do better, that I needed to not slack off so much. I needed to kind of put my back into it and really, really work at being an illustrator. And actually, totally diverting the subject, but a similar thing happened last year at MondoCon, funnily enough. Because last year was a good year for work, and I was quite happy with where I'm going. And I kind of rocked up to MondoCon off the back of doing Inforama, which is total sellout and great. And I thought, yeah, I'm the business now. I'm going to rock this show. And I didn't have as successful a show as I thought I was going to. And when you are next to Kevin Tong's booth, and Kevin is just like a rock star illustrator, and people are queuing past your booth to get into his all day long, and you're thinking, I don't feel good about myself now. And actually, like, I was kind of bummed out after MondoCon last year. I loved seeing everyone. I loved meeting all the fans and all the collectors and like all the other artists who I only get to see like once a year at these things. But I felt really bummed out after the show because I thought, because I didn't have like a hugely successful show, you know, kind of covered my costs, so that was good and made a bit of money. But it kind of put me in my place a little bit, like where I stood in the pecking order of, you know, these guys are the top tier of illustrators. And, you know, I think I was just getting ideas above my station a bit about how successful I was. And also, Rory came along, and Rory delivered like the most amazing posters I've ever seen in Graduate and Clockwork Orange. And I just looked at them and thought, oh, good Lord, those are amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to step my game up. Like, because that, like, he just set like a whole new gold standard for, like, this is how great illustration is. And Matt Woodson as well did those beautiful like art prints. I'm not sure if you saw them at his booth, like the space rocks, basically. And I saw those because I'd done a couple of art prints of my own, and I was quite proud of them. And then I saw Matt's space rocks, and I was like, holy shit, those are amazing. And yeah, like this year, I've been making a concerted effort to put more effort into work because being around all those guys just kind of put me in my place a little bit about what I feel I could be capable of versus what I was actually doing. Because it was definitely work that was being kind of, I don't want to say phoned in, but there was stuff I did last year that I was not 100% happy with, that sort of went with because it was like, I've got to get it out. I've got to get the next job in. I've got to, you know, rattle through my workload. But yeah, so not really answered your question at all. But I think partly because I've been lucky enough that I've never had to put that thing aside, but there have certainly been moments where I've had to have a little word with myself, and it's usually like the most totally incongruous comment from someone else, or just seeing another piece of art by someone whose work I love and respect and thinking, you need to put more effort in. Like, I'm so lucky that I get to do this every day, and you know, I can't waste it doing stuff that's mediocre or stuff that I'm not happy with, because I just end up miserable sitting in my studio feeling sad about the drawing I'm doing, which is a fairly depressing and awful thought.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you this then? So this will be my final question, and I think it bleeds perfectly from this topic and this conversation. You say you've been lucky, and you've mentioned that several times throughout the interview, but I'm sure like the MondoCon situation from last year, and I'm sure you felt your share of disappointment as well. And I want to know from your perspective, in the 15 years you've been doing this, what's your biggest disappointment that you've felt, and whether it's with a project that you worked really hard on and it fell through at the last minute, or a project that you, like, as soon as you were done with, you weren't happy with the piece, but it was too late to change, or whatever it may be. What's been the biggest disappointment that you've had to kind of overcome? It's so hold on to that question for a second, because this is just like a mental thought from me. It's amazing to know that Matt Taylor, you know, the I air quote Matt Taylor, but you still struggle with some of the imposter syndrome that so many people who are just getting started, and people who look at your work and say the exact same thing about you, struggle with that same thing. And it's nice to know that we're all grounded in the sense of we want to be better, and we always want to be striving for the best thing. And I commend you for sharing that, because I think so many people can relate to that. But aside from that, what's been your biggest disappointment over the 15 years you've been doing this?
Not putting more effort in when I was younger, I think, which is a bit of a broad subject. I mean, there are pieces of art that I've not been happy with, but very rarely have I actually put out something that I sort of regret doing.
Yeah, that's good.
There's good, even in the things that I don't particularly like, there is some good in them, and there's a thing that I can look at. Like, I wasn't especially happy with my Escape from New York poster that I did for MondoCon last year, but there are elements of it that I'm really happy with, because I feel like I rushed it, and I think there are bits of it I could have done better. But like, you know, I can't really classify that as like a regret because
Right.
I'm still happy with it, just not as happy as with other things. But I think generally that it took me a long time to really get like a decent work ethic when I was younger. You know, in my kind of early 20s, I look at guys like Nico Delort is like insanely young. Like Ollie was cracking out amazing work when he was in his kind of early 20s. And when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, I was working in a shoe shop and drinking too much. And basically, if I had an illustration gig that came in, I'd kind of leave it till the last minute. I still had that kind of hangover from university where you're rattling through projects like the night before they're due because like, oh, I forgot my deadline, I've got to get it in. And at university, you know, fine, whatever, the world's not going to end if you hand your project in late or you don't put enough effort in. But when you've got a proper client who's paying you good money to do work and you're leaving it till the day before you know, to get the work done, it's pretty shoddy behavior. So yeah, I kind of wish I'd put more effort in when I was younger and just figured out that this was something that was worth pursuing and that it was worth putting all my effort into and not kind of half-arsing it, full-arsing it. I should have been full-arsing it the whole time. From a like, in terms of jobs that I've done that I'm disappointed about, I did a movie poster for, and you'll have to bleep out the name of this movie, but I did a poster for last year, and it never came out. And it killed me because I really put like a lot of work into it. And it was, I'm not sure, it wasn't going to be the one sheet, but it was going to definitely be like a sort of good promotional screen printed thing. And they were going to release it at San Diego. And then it never came out. And I was kind of bummed out about it because I really liked it. And it might still come out at some point down the line.
Sure.
But it didn't come out at that moment, which would have been great because of, you know, I was proud of it then. If it gets released in time for... then, you know, that's a piece of work that's like 3 or 4 years old by that point. And, you know, whilst I'm still happy with it, if I was doing it now, it would look better than the one I did 4 years ago.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So my final question is going to be a softball. These guys went pretty in depth on their final question. So we'll give you an easy one since it's the night's wrapping up for you. What's a property or whatever that you have not worked with that you're like, man, I need to do a project for this?
There's quite a few. I'd love to do a poster for Almost Famous because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I'd love to do a poster for Out of Sight because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Those are the two off the top of my head, which I would... Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind I'd really like to do because I've got an idea for it. And I think I posted it up on Instagram a few years ago.
That one? Oh my gosh, that is
like, you can always commission him to do it.
There you go.
Let's not talk about private commissions. That's a bad road to go down.
Patrick, you can always just buy him a coffee, and I'm sure he'll just knock it out for you.
Well, like a couple people have them, but they're long gone. And the people that bought like Eternal Sunshine pieces, they don't get rid of them. Like they hold on to them because they're like deeply connected to the movie. I just need someone, like, it doesn't matter what it looks like at this point, I'll just pay for it. I'll just buy it. I just need someone to release a piece on Eternal Sunshine.
I hope it will happen at some point, and that's all I can really say about that one.
Nice.
But I'd love to see that piece through to completion. I'm drawing a blank on other things because I've got like this like laundry list of Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge.
Nice.
I'd love to do a double feature of both of those, particularly Romeo and Juliet, because it's such a gorgeous film, and I feel like there's so much great imagery that you could loop around into that. The thing is, I don't think there's much of an audience for a lot of the things that I'd like to do posters for. Like I love Moulin Rouge and I love Romeo and Juliet, but I can't see that it fits within the purview of a lot of the. How can I say this without sounding like I'm being a jerk? There are lots of properties that sell really well as movie posters.
Sure.
It's kind of illustrated posters. Superheroes do well, horror does well, sci-fi does well. But there are other things which I probably would like to take a swing at, kind of indie films. I'd love to do like a whole series of Rian Johnson posters. Yeah. Because I did Brick, and I'd love to do... I don't even really care about The Last Jedi, but I'd really, really love to do a Brothers Bloom poster. There's about 4 people in the world who would want to own that, so no one in the right mind is going to commission that poster.
Well, I think Ollie Moss has started to branch out and to do some of that stuff too, didn't he? Didn't he just recently do an indie poster that he released, like an indie film or something like that? I'm fairly confident that he did something that was like not tied to like maybe the biggest budget or like the biggest audience, but was something that he deeply cared about. And I guess he was given an opportunity.
Sightseers a few years ago. Yeah, maybe Sightseers, the Ben Wheatley film. He did that. I mean, that was kind of 5 years ago now. I've got that print actually. I've got to find a frame for it. But yeah, I mean, but you know, Ollie could do a poster for just about anything, and people would buy it because Ollie's a rock star basically, and can do anything. I'm not there yet in terms of devotees who will blindly follow me down the dark road of Brothers Bloom and Almost Famous posters.
Don't sell yourself short. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow what you do and support what you do and buy all this amazing art.
Okay, well, I've got my website, which is very, very infrequently updated, so don't visit that. I've got my Instagram and Twitter, where I'm at Matt Taylor Draws, where I will be... Instagram, I try to post mainly art, but you'll also be getting some pictures of my daughter and my wife and shoes. Twitter is going to be mainly Taylor Swift videos and nonsense about British politics, which is awful. So yeah, you can follow me in all of those places. I have a web shop which is not going to be open for a long time because I'm planning on selling prints basically at Thought Bubble Convention in the UK in September and MondoCon in November. So I am hanging on to everything I've done this year, and I'm just going to have a massive blowout, and I hope it will be more successful than last year. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, I know that
there's a little caveat to my...
You can go ahead and expect to walk away with at least 2 sales of the Guardians print from Patrick and I. So I think you're going to be fine.
Awesome.
I think that's pretty much going to cover your trip. So I think you're good. Anything after that?
Yeah, should be good. Oh yeah, a little caveat to my rant earlier. Like, I really don't want any sympathy for feeling bad about my work. I appreciate that, you know, it's just me feeling sorry for myself, and I don't want anyone to think that like I had a bad time at MondoCon last year, because it was a total blast. I think I'd built it up unreasonably in my head, so I don't want sympathy. I don't want people kind of say, "Oh, we feel sorry for you. Look, we'll buy a poster from you." Just no.
Listen,
I'll just queue up the whole weekend. I'll let people in front of me, but I'll just stand in line.
Yeah, you'll always be there ready to go. Just this year, just request not to be next to Kevin. I'm pretty sure everybody was dwarfed feeling next to Kevin last year. He killed it.
The thing is, I love Kevin. I'd love to be. I'm quite happy to be next to his booth because I can just stick my head around the corner.
Why
and
don't
say
you just
hi,
put your stuff
Kevin's,
in
like,
his
the best.
booth, and that's going to give you. I mean, that's a win-win, honestly.
Yeah, I'll set up like a little pop-up micro stand inside Kevin's enormous display.
He's going to sublease it to you. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, last year was ridiculous. Like Kevin on one side, I had Tegan and Erica on the other.
Yeah, the Gallows.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, that was great.
Yeah. And then I had Land and DKNG like directly opposite.
Draplin was across from you for a bit too,
and
wasn't
Draplin was diagonal
he
to
was,
you.
He was diagonal. He was just out of my eye line. I think if he'd been opposite me, I would have just withered into a tiny, tiny little ball and just crawled under my table. Like, it was bad enough looking at like,
you know what, though?
Land all weekend because
they
bring so many
walkway
prints.
was like a walkway for of dreams.
Well,
that's
what I hear is you had a great location last year.
Yeah, I did have a good location. Yeah. I was kind of just, I mean, in fairness, I did get quite a bit of custom from people who were in Kevin's line who were just kind of standing in front of my booth for long enough.
These look great. I'm going to buy this instead.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, I wasn't sure about it, but I'd be standing in front of it for kind of 10 minutes and it's kind of won me over. Yeah. So I'll take one.
All right. Well, before you head out of here, would you be willing to draw tokens for us so we know what we're talking about next week?
Yes, certainly.
That would be amazing. All right, well, that's it for the interview portion. Up next, we're going to draw some tokens. The tokens portion every week is when we get to find out exactly the categories that we're going to have next week, and they're going to be drawn randomly. We have to pick our topics based on those categories. That's how it works. I'm going to shuffle these up face down. I can't see what they are. Give me a number between 1 and 3, Matt, and you'll be picking for Luke.
3.
Luke, you got TV and film, my friend.
Nice.
All right, give me a number between 1 and 2, or just 1 or 2, because there's no number between 1 or 2.
There is not. I will go with 1.
1. Patrick, you got art and design.
All
That
right.
means I have toys and games. Hey, Matt, thanks so much for talking to us again. You stayed up late for us. Last time you woke up early for us. Thanks for always making time for us. And like we said, we can't wait to see you in the States for your third venture over here for the stuff in MondoCon. If you're in the area, if you want to, it's still not too late to get your tickets to MondoCon. It's at the beginning of November. Go do that. Come out and hang out with Matt and buy him a drink, buy him a piece of pizza because he's coming all the way from across the pond. It's going to be a good time.
I am. And I'm coming into town on Tuesday. I'm coming into town Tuesday before MondoCon, so I'm going to be around for a few days beforehand.
Perfect.
So,
well, then it sounds
I'll
like
be the
we're gonna
pale
grab some
guy. I'll be the pale-looking guy wandering around wandering up and down South Congress. So if you see me, just tell me you like posters, and we'll go and have a beer.
Yeah, that's all you have to do. But by the time MondoCon comes around, he'll be the extremely red and burnt guy from having walked around in Austin, and his skin just doesn't know what to do. It's going to freak it out. But go to mofonepodcast.com where you can find show notes and links to the stuff we talked about in here. You connect straight to Matt from there. And then find us on YouTube. You can subscribe to our new YouTube channel where there's going to be some new content coming out September 14th. We're going to get a whole lot more visual, which if you ask Matt gets to see us right now, and he is excited
This
for you.
isn't being recorded. This isn't going on video, is it?
No.
No.
You're fine.
God for
You're
that.
safe.
You're fine. You can keep your shirt off. It's fine.
Okay.
But coming soon, we will be visual. It's going to be a really good time. So go ahead and subscribe now, and help us out there. You can go to iTunes and Stitcher where you can subscribe, and it comes twice a week, every week, Tuesdays and
Stitcher?
Thursdays.
I know, we say it because we've always said it, but who uses Stitcher?
Plenty of people do.
No one uses Stitcher. Go
Prove
ahead.
it.
If you use Stitcher, I want you to tweet at us and say, "Hey, I'm on Stitcher." But we're there, so subscribe. And if you're on iTunes, rate and review the show. It only take you a minute. It doesn't cost you any money, but it's super helpful to us. Also, you can subscribe to, or you can partner with the show by going to Patreon. Go to patreon.com/M1podcast to support the show financially. For $5 a month, you're on the blooper level. You get a few extra things, as well as a special Slack channel that's just for us. And speaking of Slack, join the conversation on there. Go to M1podcast.com/Slack to join a group of people that's almost 250 people strong. Creatives, entrepreneurs, doers, cool people sharing their work day in and day out. It's an encouraging group. It's a great, great time. Join the conversation in there. Patrick, am I missing anything else? We're all over social media. Just search M1 Podcast. That's good, right?
Yeah.
Let's just get out of here. I think it's fine. Anything else you can find on the website. We're going to get out of here. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Matt.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butt.
Take it easy, guys.
So for this Sandbox episode, we're excited to bring one of our favorite friends from across the pond back on the show for his first time featured episode, where last time we had him in a trio of interviews, but we are going to sit down with one-on-one. Nah, I'm not going to. I'm going to say this over again.
You should
that sounded like
start
a
from
piece
the
of garbage,
beginning.
and then
That's
we'll just start over. Matt, we're professional, okay?
Yeah.
We have to say that because it doesn't always come across. All right.
This is the most professional podcast I've been on.
It does not get better. This is it.
I'm sorry? Is that? I think that's what I want to say. Yeah, I'm sorry.